So, dear Pam Bondi and Cash Patel, the FBI directors, plural, have been used remotely, criminally foreign influence slash hypercriminally foreign influence. I'm not a lawyer, but nature shows us to communicate about it that way. Also, James Madison and the founders behind him and his plan. George Washington agreed to use that plan. And we were instructed, I read, to refer to our founders, plural, as James Madison, singular, with that and his plan. And then they went and got George Washington to agree to help them and to use that plan to force the other founders, besides the ones that were behind him and his plan. And President slash Chief shows us that it was Native Americans. Nature shows us that itself. Even if it wasn't them with verbal agreements, there are proofs that there were verbal agreements. In other words, and that's why they had to leave slavery entrenched. Northern colonies and southern colonies. And the northern counters to it, they were still entrenched with it because they were internationally monitored conversations that had roles with it differentially, though, where and how guilt itself, assignments, were increasingly are used by the breaching method to keep other things, others, or ourselves blamed. Like, for example, where and how. If someone asks the question, how come we have black people's rights of eyes? And this is left out from the conversation. We're clearer than day. A breaching method reassigned what nature communicates with black people's rights of eyes, when nature's not. Only nature has criminal insidiousness. Positive treatments or negative. In fact, both of them together to keep the identity of relativity to ourselves of the breaching method, of the database's involvements with the breaching method. Northern colonies and southern colonies, with slavery sickly distinctly against everyone, but against black too, sickly distinctly, northern colonies and southern colonies. And right through the Civil War, there were still roles with it, sickly distinctly, northern and southern colonies. And there still are with descriptions of American history, where it's hard and where it's simple is inverted, takes on it tactical terror from how nature shows us to. In other words, it's not complicated, it's extensive. All these extensive roles with the breaching method were our breaching methods, plural. Styles, logic of nature, blaming other things, others, ourselves, or sensing for the breaching method when someone tries to address the predicate acts of facts roles. That way it means to discern just having black people's whites of eyes and having had that left out, while nature shows us it is inseparable. Because nature shows us that there are distinct species bodies. And we didn't invent, and they didn't invent how fish have two eyes. But what is not us or them, but is everything anyway. It should we have means to discern it this way. People say, "Oh God," and they know in the back of their minds other people don't agree about the name of God. And they subdivide the nature debate with that left out, how the breaching method employed that. You know, we have black people's whites of eyes. Anyone who denies that has demonstrated they're going to have the delusions and criminal foreign influence, fact, true nature, quality aspects of nature, like where they deny the significance of it too, and the relativity of it too. Not just those database relationships since before computers, before our founders were born. A database is identity / identities of relativity to ourselves. Criminally foreign influenced / hypercriminally foreign influence. And tactically delusions raw. Again, this is why and how no one allows anyone to be honest about the extortion of George Washington and they get away with it. If people didn't have their words changed and faked when we spoke on predicate acts, it would have revealed and everyone would know clearer than day about James Madison's plan, about how and why they had to force the other founders, and no one had free speech. Everyone had to hide their motivations because everyone was the possession in layers of criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, criminal international commerce, and roles with the nature of the laws, worse than witch trials against every single person. And how sickly distinctly against everyone, like where some people will be benefited by it, even while simultaneously no one increasingly benefits by it. Too long, humanity has been one species, criminally foreign influenced. That's the only reason why only one species took so long to just to have to destroy, even take other species to extinction. This is where Earth has a special difference with the identity of all space slash existence, can make more of itself where it is already relative to positive and negative equally simultaneously, but where it can make more positive onto itself further positive for its system of individual bodies, of species, of individual bodies, with all group differences, as what is demonstrated, like for example, where and how there is that identity is that is not us. It is not the other species' bodies, but it is everybody anyway. That distinct identity of hypersimultaneous nature that has all these things distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneously, slash hypersimultaneously. So we have not had equality of speech afforded to us because of collusions with all natures of crime scenes, all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes, and delusions, and criminally pointable wire and mail crime methods to cover that up too. That the families with and a whole bunch of people with a Leahy family involved with former director of the F.B.I. Robert Luskin and his co-defendants and their family members and their neighbors involved with predicate acts with facts in child databases and with the names next to the campuses involved with recorded identity theft, fraud, slanders. Also with whiting forensics increasingly since I was a kid, involved with people tied to the same house slash S, involved with predicate acts with them, methods of them, also on campuses. They're putting predicate acts with facts methods into databases and then having acting tied to that while other people film it, where and how these are also roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases and the courts' names and the names of the positions with the courts. Those differences where I use remotely, they're putting the same sequence shifts with the news at the same time, the same identity theft, fraud, slanders, and collusion slash S with all natures of crime scenes. They're only capable now of changing and faking every instance that comes before them. Self-valuing being and having been types of crimes, treated as types of crimes, leaving out their roles with investigators recorded how used remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrong. They've been faking whole transcripts. Even when they record things legitimately, they're doing to hide how they recorded that fake in the background. Joe DeMora will tell you. He called me on the phone. Apparently there were people in the background. He knows I recorded him before that, planting evidences. Increasingly, Joe DeMora, I never had a class with him, a formal class with him. He was in a summer school class. They made a fake exception. Increasingly, people tied to a Mr. Neville are on off the campuses I went, and with names next to it who have connections between themselves, made for them by others too. So if I try to speak with them, it makes it look like we spoke in the past. These are increasingly people with Russians, Ukraine, Koreans, including a Mr. Murphy, has a daughter. I don't even know her name. I never had the pleasure of a conversation with her. I was around her one time, so they can plant evidences with people with the intelligence community and interbranch, people tied to a Brian Silver and as a Brian Silver and a Brendan Leahy and other men and women with the name Leahy involved with multiple judges, family members, and prosecutors' family members next to the campuses involved with predicate acts with facts, identity theft, fraud, slanders. Now, these are people on off the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices with wire crime acts and methods and mail crime acts and methods and straight up identity theft, fraud, slanders with the ones involved with the acting coaches and the departments of the campuses involved criminally foreign influence, where and how it can be observed that they have been using the identities of the sciences and the identity of the department individually grouped and together, predicate acts with facts method slash S roles with the branches of government too, predicate acts with facts methods individually grouped it together, switching names, for example, self-value, because they have roles with identity theft, fraud, slander. It's three ways manifest, where and how we have black people's rights of eyes, and they have worse than criminal incompetence. And the differences of them formalize identities of the law, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, insidiousness of people A through Z, changing and faking what others say, like on social media when they mention particular predicate acts in Child Abuses Act. Only sick people would do that. And they get away with it too, because there were timed collusions with the ones with badges, with the ones with, defending their differences as, their difference. Our founders communicated for us to understand how the North and South had roles with a breaching method that had them had our founders even fact-cheminated, tortured, extorted, and enslaved, therefore physically. In other words, any voice that is above locations, areas, and states entertained as is criminally foreign influence / hyper-criminally foreign influence. How could we have had this phrase left out so long? Nature shows us too we need the phrase hyper-criminally foreign influence. You know how the southern states and the southern colonies and the northern colonies, and then the states too, northern states and southern states, they had roles with slavery before the narratives with the against it, while still for it. Other ways, they're making fake sides and that were used by the breaching method to measure and maintain its roles with slavery. Left out, and that's self-value. Otherwise, that body was sensed through our own for the breaching method. That's why how they say so stupid, pretend they could speak for integrity, or the names of or the names of the people of the sciences, pretending they had integrity. Or there's or with the differences is not important. In other words, where they have integrity, where they don't, and in nuanced instances, we're not supposed to let there are readings of statutes and our precedents that are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. Wethersfield police have the name Sullivan recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Also with a Lance Cuddy with their sources involved with proven and further recorded child abusers, leaders of kids. Also with religious locations. And then they pretend it's hate speech. They just fake and they pretended hate speech. And then they fish and they're fishing for things to cover up. With the fire departments are also involved with this. Multiple fire departments with foreign and domestic countries involved. With psychiatry together too. Ones with badges. A whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital and next to it through time. With foreign and domestic military have roles also on all sides of Central Connecticut State University, with people increasingly involved with, that's in New Britain, Connecticut. That's increasingly with people on my street planting evidences and why and how. They're also leaking tied to this, including when they deny it. They're refusing to identify themselves legitimately. The Wethersfield Police and the FBI have wire crime acts and methods, mail crime acts and methods, and collusions with other departments and other agencies and police forms and writing forensics with Wethersfield Police attached me to fake conversations with themselves and being at the police station when I was a kid that weren't at all. And then they did that when I was an adult too. In other words. And I was at least down there, but I said once, I had never a word in my life to the older Mendez police officer who's increasingly involved with people with names Demoro and Scalora, with Connecticut campuses, with roles with Saudis, with Saudi Arabia, and all these other countries, Korea, etc. And how they're on and off campuses, thinking and speaking together, right? Where and how they have no right to be thinking and speaking with other people's names involved while they're tactical delusions raw, criminally foreign influence, collusion /S. That's what's actually recorded. WFSB faked conversations with me. They increasingly have roles with all these different countries in the news, like in Judge Napolitano's Judging Freedom YouTube channel. See his live streams, how serious those subjects are? All those countries are involved with Connecticut campuses, with the ones with predicate acts on my street. Dear God, let's get them on paper, one name in sequence. What are they doing with this Lena's Pizza and the Daryl Sullivan planting evidences with his wife, switching names with people on intercities, and with criminal enterprises, now with terrorists too, and with ones increasingly from my sixth grade class tied to this Lance Cuddy. I never had a class with Lance Cuddy. I don't even know what schools he went to. I never saw him on the inside of a campus in my life. I saw him 2 times in my life. One time outside of the from a distance. I had no communications with him outside of the state corrections officer. And one time at Lena's Pizza on Park Street, his has something to do with a Michelle Sanquest and his roles with a whole bunch of people with Lena's Pizza, with a Daryl Sullivan, and people that's been switching names, with Court's family members. And Eric Burgess is one of the military, foreign and domestic, involved with Lena's Pizza, with a Michelle Sanquest, and former director of the FBI's co-defendants and their family members, and a Joseph Dennis, and people that are tied to him, intercities through time, with New Britain, and a former Mayor Gold, and other mayors, and like a Ruth next to the state education department since before it was there, increasingly involved with criminal enterprises and the Saudi attackers that effectively used and are using the names of America right through their own, and Saudi Arabia right through their own, remotely, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. That's why that's the value of the readings of those books too, those religious books and the sciences, because they have rackets by that. Right at the beginning of the Old Testament says only defend right here, where the names of the people, the sciences will come together, and the part that comes before it. That means they can't be honest about the parts that come after it or the difference of it either. And that's recorded too, having been exploited. The same thing with the Quran. The Quran has a part at the beginning that says all that matters is if someone is honest about the name they're going to use. And if they believe in using the name for all space less existence, should be Allah, the scientific value of it. And it doesn't use the word science, but it's saying, for example, it qualifies by saying, and the individual is obligated not to pray in a mosque for any reason. The only thing that matters, all that matters, is if they are honest about what the name they're used, how they're going to use the name of all space less existence. See, there are things that are pretended debatable at countries A through Z, and it's gotten away with because of where and how the breaching method already showed the identities of difference, how they had to use to hide how they self-value roles with the breaching method uses of differences A through Z, and or roles setting for the breaching method. If anybody uses short words properly, less the revelations that come with their protraction be used, because then would have discerned there's a human fact, true nature, breaching method is a scientific value, inseparable from an as use /s of all locations /s. Every single place the human species body has a body standing, all stands abridged. We're supposed to get the Constitution unabridged. You guys are playing names, pretending you have the right to debate and change and fake what we say with courts. You have courts online and with whole kinds of evidences, rackets, predicate acts, facts, methods, with the news locations, and with public televisions, your communications locations, a summary judgment YouTube channel with the Wethersfield police lawyers, and retired police chiefs involved with Russians in Ukraine at the same time, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, and the other countries like Saudi Arabia involved with them. And there's a Thomas Pruder who was in my sixth grade class, increasingly involved with the Michelle Sanquest when I was a kid, and then when I was an adult, the news recorded her faking things with a principal upskirt nature. Fake tie never was only a gentleman to her ever. I never responded to her. She told me one time I didn't get in trouble for buying a knife and bringing it into school because I bought it through the catalog that was at the school. And that principal and his daughter is increasingly lied to about me by the people involved with this Michelle Sandquist, further with the schools and with Whiting Forensics, with Joshua Julian and others involved with all sides of my house with foreign and domestic military, including a Bernstein, I don't know his name. And his family is involved with my 6th grade class, and people with my 5th grade class and my 4th grade class has roles to body dumping spots. And people tied to them, like a Sal Civiello. I never had a conversation with him. He's involved with people that were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed him involved with them putting fake things in databases and changing and faking what's actually digitally recorded and fake phone transcripts and changed ones. They're recording things after they a Richard Dombrowski. I never had a class with him, never saw him at campuses anywhere. A Richard Dombrowski. I went to one Cub Scout meeting. They just sat there, looked at me, and left. And I went to another Cub Scout meeting. Then he called me on the phone and asked me if I wanted to buy a paintball gun, which was also confirmations and demonstrations of his roles with a whole bunch of people that have been planting predicate acts in my street with interbranch families and overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time, and the news. So I can't get anything on writing since I was a kid. I'm not the only one. So even if these people, even if they're trying to establish undercover and illusions or whatever with this lady and the people tied to her, like the Sullivan, even if that's not the same one associated with the Lena's Pizza and the Park Street locations, with the judges and prosecutors and their family members that work with their courts and their foreign and domestic, like with the military, with Eric Burgess, involved with former director of the F.B.I. Robert Luskin, with the courts and the prosecutors and their family members at West Hartford locations planting evidences before the World Trade Center attack, and at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain before the World Trade Center attack. I never saw them on that campus in my life. There are proofs they might have pretended other. There's an Officer Hunter also involved with them with predicate acts before and after the World Trade Center attack. His roles with a whole bunch of people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Him involved with them with identity theft, fraud, slanders. Also collusion /S with proven child abusers, leaders of kids. And these are people increasingly forcing and having forced Saudis to collusions with them. And the Saudi attackers forced the collusions with us, with themselves. This breaching method measures and maintains people incapable of responding to things properly and then defending that syntactically without blaming on other things, others themselves, things that the breaching method caused, like slavery itself. You don't leave out how a breaching method caused slavery, reassign black people's rights of life. You don't leave black people's rights of life separable from the subject of slavery, because nature doesn't, black people's, who disbelieves.